quite tall, slightly stooped. My neck leans forward, probably after carrying so many heavy cameras for years. My posture's a bit strange. Usually, as today, on the edge of looking quite tired. Slightly dark skin. My father's from India and my mum's English, and they met in Bristol. I recently started wearing glasses. One eye is long-sighted and one eye is short-sighted. And I was told that's because after using cameras for so many years, so they kind of went in different directions. In a way, I'm quite happy to inform people that I'm from the city. It's quite poignant for me, I suppose, because when I was 13 years old or 12, I can't remember, I was so restless, and my dad enrolled me on a photography course at the Watershed. And that was a big turning point in some ways, and also with the help of my dad, learning to develop and process film and print my own pictures at a very early age. Of course, caring about the world, human exchanges or human encounters, and have always been very important to me, and how people are with each other. And it's just, for me, that's just life. Languages I can speak is quite a sore subject, because I've lived in Sweden for 8 years and I cannot speak any Swedish at all. As much as I'm craving words, I've always found languages hard to grasp. I'm not very good with the spoken word, even in my own language. My spare time is with my family and children, and we often do things, analog things. So occasionally on weekends we would make some quite crude things out of wood, which is really fun. If I'm thinking about the senses, of course, one immediately thinks of sight and your eyes. I was really not academic at school. I couldn't concentrate. I had a strong desire to tune into things, to respond to things, to react. But as I say, I wasn't very good with words. So images did very naturally become a way of articulation. And it wasn't until my adult life I realized, and I was diagnosed with very high spectrum ADHD. There's this frustration that came with, you're wanting to, but you didn't know how to channel. So in a way, that's another reason I'm really grateful to visual arts. Curious and quite restless. I find it very hard to relax. In London, after living there for 20 years, I was like, I have to get out of the city, because I associate it only with working. Nothing changed, and I realized I was blaming London, but it wasn't London that was the problem, it was me. I just don't stop. Well, where I live is quite rural. It's this flat, open, vast land. To the naked human eye, when you look out the window, it looks like there's very little happening. I quickly understood when I moved there that this was an illusion, and actually it's busy, it's very hectic, there's so much activity there, but you just can't see it. I thought when it would be interesting to try and pull the birds or funnel the birds out of the sky. So I asked a local farmer if I could put a pillar on the edge of his farmland, and then opposite that pillar, I put another pillar with a camera which was activated by movement. So I left the pillar there for 4 years and visited it 3 days a week. This is a series that I particularly like, because in a way, even though I kind of orchestrated it, and I've completely stepped out as the author, and the work has been informed and made by the birds themselves. So it was like a kind of insight into this other world. And I made a book of this series eventually, and I gave a copy to each of my 2 children. They then kind of changed all of the birds by colouring them into new species, some quite exotic. In the series, there were a couple of pillars on their own with no bird sitting on top at all. So that is also a bigger space for the imagination to come up with anything. I mean, it doesn't even have to be birds. It'd be great to see some of the examples of what the school children of Bristol create.